back about the climate, culturally, politically, spiritually in the country at the end of the 80s, the beginning of the 90s. I remember George Gallup saying that we live in an addicted society. He was referring to the corporate world, and he was saying that they're addicted to fame, success, wealth, and really kind of the old story of having their ladder leaning against the wrong building.
Well, I remember a very important book that was in the late 80s. Well, maybe it came out early. One was the Mark Knoll's book, Scandal of the Evangelical Mind. And Mark talked about the anti-intellectualism of American evangelicals, and essentially said we're a mile wide and an inch deep. And what I recall about partly what motivated our interest in at the time, Greater Orlando Leadership Foundation, Larry's acronym GOLF.
Golf.
That came from Larry.
A lot of golf going on in Florida.
Lifework Leadership. But part of it was our conviction that lay people in churches tend to be fairly shallow relative to their theological and biblical worldview, and weren't really motivated to see business as a spiritual calling. That was really motivating us as well.
In fact, usually the testimonies that were given in public was somebody that had really decided to commit their life to Christ as a businessman, and so they sold their business and they went into full-time Christianity.
Right. They saw their calling to not as running a business as a spiritual calling, but making money to give it to the church or to missions.
Right.
And also there was not a lot of intention about racial reconciliation. You know, our country was still reeling from tremendous tensions between blacks and whites and so forth. So I thought that was part of the context as well, historically. An old friend of mine was in the U.S. Senate named Bill Armstrong. He's now president of Colorado Christian University. And he called me, he was getting ready to leave the Senate. And he said he and some business friends felt that there was a need for an organization that would really help equip Christian businessmen and women to be salt and light in the communities. Not too dissimilar from what the Chamber does very well with Leadership Orlando, Leadership Atlanta, but one that was openly Christ-centered. So he said, would you fly up to Washington and meet and brainstorm? So we did, and on a napkin, he sketched out his vision for what became golf. And then he asked me to speak on it, to draft a paper and speak on it at this meeting of all these wealthy business guys in Dallas. So I called you and said, hey, with all your background with the gathering of businessmen and women, let's come with me and let's present this paper.
I went to hold your hand.
That's right. I want to hold your hand. So we presented the paper, and there was enthusiastic response. And in front of everybody, Bill Armstrong asked us if we would do this. And we both said yes, because of the peer pressure, I think, and because of these other factors going on.
What did we think was going to happen?
Well, we thought all these wealthy businessmen were so excited they'd fund the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. How many did, Ralph?
We got one donation from Bill Armstrong. We decided to do a pilot project for 5 Saturdays, and when was that, 89 or 90?
No. That meeting was in 90, so in 91.
Oh, 91 we did the pilot.
91. Uh-huh.
See, I'm glad we have our historian here. He pays attention to detail. And we discovered, we had great speakers. It was just a pilot, but no one wanted to come out on Saturdays.
It was a struggle.
And it was really hard to get people to catch the vision for it.
We were always trying to figure out how we were going to pay for something, and usually in a board meeting, we would be upside down somehow financially. We're trying to figure out how we're going to make it. And Ralph, you'd always say, it's no problem, no problem. And so, I gave you the moniker after that of No Problem Ralph. Whenever we needed money, Ralph would go raise it.
Well, I always was the board optimist when it came to finances, but we were a good team because you were always the pessimist. And this was Dr. Frugality on the board. He
Show me the money.
Show me the money, Kreider was his moniker. So in every board meeting, he would ask, where's the money coming from? And I would say, well,
no problem.
No problem. I think I got some ideas. So I think back about some of the rewarding memories of golf or life work. Most of those are experiences with some of the faculty that we had come in to speak. A lot of times it was Bob Lupton, and he would teach and the lights would go on about how do we be salt and light in inner city neighborhoods. Or Gordon MacDonald talking about the power of a coach and the spiritual disciplines, or so many other teachers that we would bring in, Larry, that we got the benefit of hearing all over again.
It was kind of fun seeing the guys that had excited us over the years. They were now planting those seeds with our friends.
Right. And I think on seeing the racial reconciliation that came about through now lifetime friendships.
I would say that's one of the things that I was the most encouraged by, is just lifetime friendships, networking. People could call on one another for various things that were important to them. Those still exist today. You know, if we think about maybe our hope or dreams for the future of Lifework and the impact it will have, this may not be succinct enough, but I think if our alumni can help change the conversation of the city in terms of when you look at issues and problems, that you look at it through a lens or a worldview that the rest of the society or culture may not be able to define that as a Christian worldview, but it is. And I think that creates health for the culture, health for the society. And as a result of that, great things take place in the business world, in the nonprofit world, in the churches, in the family life, which, by the way, was one of the things that we emphasized in our class, was marriage relationships and what it took to have a family that glorified God. And so I just say change the conversation. You know,
when we were recruiting people to participate, one of the things that we would say is it's an opportunity to have a half a day a month retreat where you can really feed your soul and mind and get to know some fantastic, leaders in the city. And that's proven to be very true. And I think why that was an effective approach to recruiting is that our desire was to see people develop a new appreciation for the transformation of the mind. Romans 12:2. Be conformed not by this, 12:1
and 2.
You're the Bible guy. But be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so we feel like to take that time, even if it's only half a day a month, to think deeply about your spiritual calling, about your biblical world and life view, and to study under someone who can really help give you more depth in understanding what's going on in our world and our city. And that can be a carryover. Don't let, a 9-month, 9 half-day retreats be the end point. Hopefully it's a beginning point to take ideas seriously, and to take spiritual growth and spiritual discipline seriously, as well as the commitment to being relationally linked outside of church and race and vocation to make a difference for Christ in our city.
You think of the 20-year window of Lifework being here. Now, maybe it hasn't fundamentally transformed the city, but I think it's created the potential for that in the lives of these alumni who are going out and changing the conversation wherever they go.
In the early days of golf or Lifework, we were inspired, remember, by what was going on in Pittsburgh with the Pittsburgh Leadership Foundation and Reed Carpenter. And they were not doing what we were doing, but they were really mobilizing lay leaders to really impact the city. And one of their theologians that had inspired them, pastor theologian, was Dr. Sam Shoemaker. You remember him?
Yes.
And what was his famous line about Pittsburgh?
He wanted Pittsburgh to be more known for God than steel.
That's right. So I remember we'd say, well, we want to be more well-known in Orlando for God than Disney. But don't take that personally, Al. But in a sense, to have so much salt and light all over the city, that our city would be a special place.